by the river. Siddhartha walked through the forest, was already far from the city, and knew nothing but that one thing, that there was no going back for him, that this life, as he had lived it for many years until now, was over and done away with, and that he had tasted all of it, sucked everything out of it until he was disgusted with it. Dead was the singing bird he had dreamt of, dead was the bird in his heart. Deeply he had been entangled in samsara. He had been sucked up, disgust and death from all sides into his body, like a sponge sucks up water until it is full. And full he was, full of the feeling of being sick of it, full of misery, full of death. There was nothing left in this world which could have attracted him, given him joy, given him comfort. Passionately, he wished to know nothing about himself any more, to have rest, to be dead. If there was only a lightning bolt to strike him dead, if only there was a tiger to devour him, if only there was a wine, a poison which would numb his senses, bring him forgetfulness and sleep, and no awakening from that. Was there still any kind of filth he had not soiled himself with, a sin or foolish act he had not committed, a dreariness of the soul he had not brought upon himself? Was it still at all possible to be alive? Was it possible to breathe in again and again, to breathe out, to feel hunger, to eat again, to sleep with a woman again? Was the cycle not exhausted and brought to a conclusion for him? Siddhartha reached the large river in the forest, the same river over which a long time ago, when he had still been a young man and came from the town of Gotama, a ferryman had conducted him. By this river he stopped. Hesitantly he stood at the bank. Tiredness and hunger had weakened him, and for should he walk on, wherever, to which goal? No, there were no more goals. There was nothing left but the deep, painful yearning to shake off this whole desolate dream, to spit out this stale wine, to put an end to this miserable and shameful life. A hang bent over the bank of the river, a coconut tree. Siddhartha leaned against its trunk with his shoulder, embraced the trunk with one arm, and looked down into the green water, which ran and ran under him, looked down and found himself to be entirely filled with the wish to let go and to drown in these waters. A frightening emptiness was reflected back at him by the water, answering to the terrible emptiness in his soul. Yes, he had reached the end. There was nothing left for him except to annihilate himself, except to smash the failure into which he had shaped his life, to throw it away before the feet of mockingly laughing gods. This was the great vomiting he had longed for, death, the smashing to bits of the form he had hated. Let him be food for the fishes, this dog Siddhartha, this lunatic, this depraved and rotten body, this weakened and abused soul. Let him be food for fishes and crocodiles. Let him be chopped to bits by the demons. With a distorted face, he stared into the water, saw the reflection of his face, and spit at it. In deep tiredness, he took his arm away from the trunk of the tree and turned a bit in order to let himself fall straight down, in order to finally drown. With his eyes closed, he slipped towards death. Then, out of remote areas of his soul, out of past times of his now weary life, a sound stirred up. It was a word, a syllable, which he, without thinking, with a slurred voice, spoke to himself. The old word, which is the beginning and end of all prayers of the Brahmins, the holy Om, which roughly means that what is perfect, or the completion. And in the moment when the sound of Om touched Siddhartha's ear, his dormant spirit suddenly woke up and realized the foolishness of his actions. Siddhartha was deeply shocked. So this was how things were with him. So doomed was he, so much he had lost his way, and was forsaken by all knowledge, that he had been able to seek death, that this wish of a child, had been able to grow in him, to find rest by annihilating his body. What all agony of these recent times, all sobering realizations, all desperation had not brought about, this was brought on by this moment. When the Om entered his consciousness, he became aware of himself in his misery and in his error. Om, he spoke to himself, Om, and again he knew about Brahman, knew about the indestructibility of life, knew about all that is divine, which he had forgotten. By this was only a moment, flash. By the foot of the coconut tree, Siddhartha collapsed, struck down by tiredness, mumbling Om, placed his head on the root of the tree, and fell into a deep sleep. Deep was his sleep, and without dreams. For a long time he had not known such a sleep any more. When he woke up after many hours, he felt as if 10 years has passed. He heard the water quietly flowing, did not know where he was and who had brought him here, opened his eyes, saw with astonishment that there were trees in the sky above him, and he remembered where he was and how he got here. But it took him a long while for this, and the past seemed to him as if it had been covered by a veil, infinitely distant, infinitely far away, infinitely meaningless. He only knew that his previous life, and the first moment when he thought about it, this past life seemed to him like a very old previous incarnation, like an early pre-birth of his present self, that his previous life had been abandoned by him, that, full of disgust and wretchedness, he had even intended to throw his life away, but that by a river under a coconut tree he has come to his senses, the holy word Om on his lips, that then he had fallen asleep and had now woken up and was looking at the world as a new man. Quietly, he spoke the word Om to himself, speaking which he had fallen asleep, and it seemed to him as if his entire long sleep had been nothing but a long meditative recitation of Om, a thinking of Om, a submergence and complete entering into Om, into the nameless, the perfected. What a wonderful sleep had this been! Never before by sleep he had been thus refreshed, thus renewed, thus rejuvenated. Perhaps he had really died, had drowned, and was reborn in a new body. But no, he knew himself. He knew his hand and his feet, knew the place where he lay, knew the self in his chest. The Siddhartha, the eccentric, the weird one, but the Siddhartha was nevertheless transformed, was renewed, and was strangely well rested, strangely awake, joyful, and curious. Siddhartha straightened up. Then he saw a person sitting opposite to him, an unknown man, a monk in a yellow robe with a shaven head, sitting in the position of pondering. He observed the man, who had neither hair on his head nor a beard, and he had not observed him for long when he recognized this monk as Govinda, the friend of his youth. Govinda, who had taken his refuge with the exalted Buddha. Govinda had aged, he too, but still his face bore the same features, expressed zeal, faithfulness, searching, timidness. But when Govinda now, sensing his gaze, opened his eyes and looked at him, Siddhartha saw that Govinda did not recognize him. Govinda was happy to find him awake, apparently. He had been sitting here for a long time, and been waiting for him to wake up, though he did not know him. I have been sleeping, said Siddhartha. How did you get here? You have been sleeping, answered Govinda. It is not good to be sleeping in such places, where snakes often are, and the animals of the forest have their paths. I, O sir, am a follower of the exalted Gautama, the Buddha, the Shakyamuni, and have been on a pilgrimage together with several of us on this path, when I saw you lying and sleeping in a place where it is dangerous to sleep. Therefore, I sought to wake you up, O sir, and since I saw that your sleep was very deep, I stayed behind from my group and sat with you, and then, so it seems, I have fallen asleep myself, I who wanted to guard your sleep. Badly I have served you. Tiredness has overwhelmed me, but now that you're awake, let me go to catch up with my brothers. I thank you, Samana, for watching out over my sleep, spoke Siddhartha. You're friendly, you followers of the Exalted One. Now you may go then. A I'm going, sir. May you always be in good health. I thank you, Samana. Govinda made the gesture of a salutation and said farewell. Farewell, Govinda, said Siddhartha. The monk stopped. Permit me to ask, sir, from where do you know my name? Now, Siddhartha smiled. I know you, O Govinda, from your father's hut, and from the school of the Brahmins, and from the offerings, and from our walk to the savanas, and from that hour when you took your refuge with the Exalted One in the grove Chittavana. You're Siddhartha, Govinda exclaimed loudly. Now I'm recognizing you, and don't comprehend any more how I couldn't recognize you right away. Be welcome, Siddhartha. My joy is great to see you again. It also gives me joy to see you again. You've been the guard of my sleep. Again, I thank you for this, though I wouldn't have required any guard. Where are you going to, O friend? I'm going nowhere. We monks are always traveling. Whenever it is not the rainy season, we always move from one place to another, live according to the rules of the teachings passed on to us. Accept alms, move on. It is always like this. But you, Siddhartha, where are you going to? Quoth Siddhartha, with me too, friend. It is as it is with you. I'm going nowhere. I'm just traveling. I'm on a pilgrimage. Govinda spoke. You're saying you're on a pilgrimage? And I believe in you, but forgive me, O Siddhartha. You do not look like a pilgrim. You're wearing a rich man's garments. You're wearing the shoes of a distinguished gentleman, and your hair the fragrance of perfume. It is not a pilgrim's hair, not the hair of a samana. Right so, my dear, you have observed well, your keen eyes see everything. But I haven't said to you that I was a samana. I said, I'm on a pilgrimage. And so it is. I'm on a pilgrimage. You're on a pilgrimage, said Govinda. But few would go on a pilgrimage in such clothes, few in such shoes, few with such hair. Never have I met such a pilgrim, being a pilgrim myself for many years. I believe you, my dear Govinda. But now, today, you've met a pilgrim just like this, wearing such shoes, such a garment. Remember, my dear, not eternal is the world of appearances. Not eternal, anything but eternal are our garments, the style of our hair, and the style of our hair and bodies themselves. I'm wearing a rich man's clothes. You've seen this quite right. I'm wearing them because I have been a rich man, and I'm wearing my hair like the worldly and lustful people, for I have been one of them. And now, Siddhartha, what are you now? I don't know it. I don't know it just like you. I'm traveling. I was a rich man, and I'm no rich man any more. But what I'll be tomorrow, I don't know. You've lost your riches. I've lost them, or they me. They've somehow slipped away from me. The wheel of physical manifestations is turning quickly, Govinda. Where is Siddhartha the Brahmin? Where is Siddhartha the Samana? Where is Siddhartha the rich man? Non-eternal things change quickly, Govinda, you know it. Govinda looked at the friend of his youth for a long time, with doubt in his eyes. After that, he gave him the salutation which one would use on a gentleman, and went on his way. With a smiling face, Siddhartha watched him leave. He loved him still, this faithful man, this fearful man. And how could he not love everybody and everything in this moment, and the glorious hour after his wonderful sleep filled with Om? The enchantment which happened inside of him in his sleep, and by means of the Om, was this very thing that he loved everything, that he was so full of joyful love for everything he saw. And it was this very thing, so it seemed to him now, which had been his sickness before, that he was not able to love anybody or anything. With a smiling face, Siddhartha watched the leaving monk. The sleep had straightened him much, but hunger gave him much pain, for now he had not eaten for 2 days, and times were long past when he had been touched against hunger. With sadness, and yet also with a smile, he thought of that time. In those days, so he remembered, he had boasted of 3 things to Kamala, had been able to do 3 noble and undefeatable feats: fasting, waiting, thinking. These had been in his possession, his power and strength, his solid staff. In the busy, laborious years of his youth, he had learned these 3 feats, nothing else. And now they had abandoned him. None of them was his any more. neither fasting nor waiting nor thinking, for the most wretched things he had given them up, for what fades most quickly, for sensual lust, for the good life, for riches. His life had seemed strange, and now, so it seemed, now he had really become a childlike person. Siddhartha thought about his situation. Thinking was hard on him. He did not really feel like it, but he forced himself. Now, he thought, since all of these most easily perishing things have slipped from me again, now I am standing here under the sun again, just as I have been standing here, a little child. Nothing is mine. I have no abilities. There is nothing I could bring about. I have learned nothing. How wondrous is this, now that I am no longer young, that my hair is already half gray, that my strength is fading. Now I'm starting again at the beginning, and as a child. Again he had to smile. Yes, his fate had been strange. Things were going downhill with him, and now he was again facing the world void and naked and stupid. But he could not feed sadness about this. No, he even felt a great urge to laugh about himself, to laugh about this strange, foolish world. Things are going downhill with you, he said to himself, and laughed about it. And as he was saying it, he happened to glance at the river, and he also saw the river going downhill, always moving on downhill, and singing and being happy through it all. He liked this well, kindly. He smiled at the river. Was this not the river in which he intended to drown himself in past times 100 years ago, or had he dreamed this? Wondrous indeed was my life, so he thought. Wondrous detours it has taken. As I had only to do with gods and offerings. As a youth, I had only to do with asceticism, with thinking and meditation, with searching for Brahman, worshipped the eternal and the Atman. But as a young man, I followed the penitents, lived in the forest, suffered the heat and frost, learned to hunger, taught my body to become dead. Wonderfully, soon afterwards, insight came towards me in the form of the great Buddhist teachings. I felt the knowledge of the oneness of the world circling in me like my own blood. But I also had to leave the Buddha and the great knowledge. I went and learned the art of love with Kamala, learned trading with Kamaswami, piled up money, wasted money, learned to love my stomach, learned to please my senses. I had spent many years losing my spirit, to unlearn thinking again, to forget the oneness. Isn't it just as if I had turned slowly and on a long detour from a man into a child, from a thinker into a childlike person? And yet this path has been very good, and yet the bird in my chest has not died. But what a path this has been! I had to pass through much stupidity, through so much vices, through so much errors, through so much disgust and disappointments and woe, just to become a child again and to be able to start over. But it was right so. My heart says yes to it. My eyes smile to it. I've had to experience despair. I've had to sink down to the most foolish one of all thoughts, to the thought of suicide, in order to be able to experience divine grace, to hear Om again, to be able to sleep properly and awake properly again. I had to become a fool to find Atman in me again. I had to sin to be able to live again, or else might my path lead me to. It is a foolish one, this path, and moves in loops. Perhaps it is going around in a circle. Let it go as it likes. I want to take it. Wonderfully, he felt joy rolling like waves in his chest. Wherever from, he asked his heart, wherever from did he get this happiness? Might it come from that long, good sleep, which has done me so good, or from the word Om, which I said, or from the fact that I have escaped, that I have completely fled, that I am now finally free again, and am standing like a child under the sky? Oh, how good is it to have fled, to have become free! How clean and beautiful is the air here, how good to breathe. There, where I ran away from, there everything smelled of ointments, of spices, of wine, of excess, of sloth. How did I hate this world of the rich, of those who revel in fine food, of the gamblers? How did I hate myself for staying in this terrible world for so long? How did I hate myself, have deprived, poisoned, tortured myself, have made myself old and evil? No, never again I will, as I used to like doing so much, delude myself into thinking that Siddhartha was wise. But this one thing I have done well, this I like, this I must praise, that there is now an end to that hatred against myself, to that foolish and dreary life. I praise you, Siddhartha. After so many years of foolishness, you have once again had an idea, have done something, have heard the bird in your chest singing, and have followed it. Thus he praised himself, found joy in himself, listened curiously to his stomach, which was rumbling with hunger. Yet now, so he felt, in these recent times and days, completely tasted and spit out, devoured up to the point of desperation and death, a piece of suffering, a piece of misery. Like this, it was good. For much longer he could have stayed with Kamaswami, made money, wasted money, filled his stomach, and let his soul die of thirst. For much longer he could have lived in this soft, well upholstered hell. If this had not happened, the moment of complete hopelessness and despair, that most extreme moment, when he hung over the rushing waters and was ready to destroy himself, that he had felt this despair, this deep disgust, and that he had not succumbed to it, that the bird, the joyful source, and the voice in him was still alive after all. This was why he felt joy, this was why he laughed, this was why his face was smiling brightly under his hair, which had turned grey. It is good, he thought, to get a taste of everything for oneself, which one needs to know, that lust for the world and riches do not belong to good things. I have already learned as a child. I have known it for a long time, but I have experienced only now, and now I know it. Don't just know it in my memory, but in my eyes and my heart and my stomach. Good for me to know this. For a long time he pondered his transformation, listened to the bird as it sang for joy. Had not this bird died in him? Had he not felt its death? No, something else from within him had died, something which already for a long time yearned to die. Was it not this what he used to intend to kill in his ardent years as a penitent? Was this not his self, his small, frightened and proud self he had wrestled with for so many years, which had defeated him again and again, which was back again after every killing, prohibited joy, felt fear? Was it not this which today had finally come to its death here in the forest by this lovely river? Was it not due to this death that he was now like a child, so full of trust, so without fear, so full of joy? Now, Siddhartha also got some idea of why he had fought himself in vain as a Brahmin, as a penitent. Too much knowledge had held him back, too many holy verses, too many sacrificial rules, too much self-castigation, so much doing and striving for that goal. Full of arrogance, he had been always the smartest, always working the most, always one step ahead of all the others, always the knowing and spiritual one, always the priest or wise one. Into being a priest, into this arrogance, into the spirituality his self had retreated, there it sat firmly and grew, while he thought he would kill it by fasting and penance. Now he saw it, and saw that the secret voice had been right, that no teacher would ever have been able to bring about his salvation. Therefore, he had to go out into the world, lose himself to lust and power, to money and women, and had to become a merchant, a dice gambler, a drinker, and a greedy person, until the priest and samana in him was dead. Therefore, he had to continue bearing these ugly years, bearing the disgust, the teachings, the pointlessness of a dreary and wasted life up to the end, up to the bitter despair, until Siddhartha the lustful, Siddhartha the greedy could also die. He had died, a new Siddhartha had woken up from the sleep. He would also grow old. He would also eventually have to die. Mortal was Siddhartha. Mortal was every physical form. But today he was young, was a child, the new Siddhartha, and was full of joy. He thought these thoughts, listened with a smile to his stomach, listened gratefully to a buzzing bee. Cheerfully he looked into the rushing river. Never before he had liked a water so well as this one. Never before he had perceived the voice in the parable of the moving water thus strongly and beautifully. It seemed to him as if the river had something special to tell him, something he did not know yet, which was still awaiting him. In this river, Siddhartha had intended to drown himself. In it, the old, tired, desperate Siddhartha had drowned today, but the new Siddhartha felt a deep love for the rushing water and decided for himself not to leave it very soon. The ferryman. By this river I want to stay, thought Siddhartha. It is the same which I have crossed a long time ago on my way to the childlike people. A friendly ferryman had guided me then. He is the one I want to go to. Starting out from his hut, my path had led me at that time into a new life, which had now grown old and is dead. My present path, my present new life, shall also take its start there. Tenderly he looked into the rushing water, into the transparent green, into the crystal lines of its drawing, so rich in secrets. Bright pearls he saw rising from the deep, quiet bubbles of air floating on the reflecting surface, the blue of the sky being depicted in it. With 1,000 eyes the river looked at him, with green ones, with white ones, with crystal ones, with sky blue ones. How did he love this water? How did it delight him? How grateful was he to it? In his heart he heard the voice talking, which was newly awaking, and it told him, love this water, stay near it, learn from it. Oh yes, he wanted to learn from it. He wanted to listen to it. He would understand this water and its secrets, so it seemed to him, would also understand many other things, many secrets, all secrets. But out of all secrets of the river, he today only saw one. This one touched his soul. He saw this water ran and ran, incessantly it ran, and was nevertheless always there, was always at all times the same, and yet new in every moment. Great be he who would not grasp this, understand this. He understood and grasped it not, only felt some idea of it stirring, a distant memory, divine voices. Siddhartha rose. The workings of hunger in his body became unbearable. In a daze he walked on, up the path by the bank, up river, listened to the current, listened to the rumbling hunger in his body. When he reached the ferry, the boat was just ready, and the same ferryman who had once transported the young Samana across the river stood in the boat. Siddhartha recognized him. He had also aged very much. Would you like to ferry me over? He asked. The ferryman, being astonished to see such an elegant man walking along and on foot, took him into his boat and pushed it off the bank. It's a beautiful life you have chosen for yourself, the passenger spoke. It must be beautiful to live by this water every day and to cruise on it. With a smile, the man at the oar moved from side to side. It is beautiful, sir, it is as you say. But isn't every life, isn't every work beautiful? This may be true, but I envy you for yours. Ah, you would soon stop envying it, enjoying it. This is nothing for people wearing fine clothes. Siddhartha laughed. Once before, I have been looked upon today because of my clothes. I've been looked upon with distrust. Wouldn't you, ferryman, like to accept these clothes, which are a nuisance to me, from me? For you must know, I have no money to pay your fare. You're joking, sir, the ferryman laughed. I'm not joking, friend. Behold, before you ferry me across this water in your boat for the material reward of a good deed. Thus, do it today as well, and accept my clothes for it. And do you, sir, intend to continue to travel without clothes? Ah, most of all, I wouldn't want to continue traveling at all. Most of all, I would like to be like you, ferryman, to give me an old lion cloth and keep me with you as your assistant, or rather as your trainee, for I'll have to learn first how to handle the boat. For a long time, the ferryman looked at the stranger, searching. Now I recognize you, he finally said. At one time, you've slept in my hut. This was a long time ago, possibly more than 20 years ago, and you've been ferried across the river by me, and we parted like good friends. Haven't you been a samana? I can't think of your name anymore. My name is Siddhartha, and I was a samana when you've last seen me. So be welcome, Siddhartha. My name is Vasudeva. You will, so I hope, be my guest today, as well and sleep in my hut, and tell me where you're coming from and why these beautiful clothes are such a nuisance to you. They reached the middle of the river, and Vasudeva pushed the oar with more strength in order to overcome the current. He worked calmly, his eyes fixed in the front of the boat with brawny arms. Siddhartha sat and watched him and remembered how once before, on that last day of his time as a samana, love for this man had stirred in his heart. Gratefully, he accepted Vasudeva's invitation. When they had reached the bank, he helped him to tie the boat to the stakes. After this, the ferryman asked him to enter the hut, offered him bread and water, and Siddhartha ate with eager pleasure, and also ate with eager pleasure of the mango fruits Vasudeva offered him. Afterwards, it was almost time of the sunset. They sat on a log by the bank, and Siddhartha told the ferryman about where he originally came from, and about his life, as he had seen it before his eyes today. In that hour of despair, until late at night, lasted his tale. Vasudeva listened with great attention. Listening carefully, he let everything enter his mind, birthplace and childhood, all that learning, all that searching, all joy, all distress. This was among the ferryman's virtues, one of the greatest. Like only a few, he knew how to listen. Without him having spoken a word, the speaker sensed how Vasudeva let his words enter his mind, quiet, open, waiting, how he did not lose a single one, awaited not a single one with impatience, did not add his praise or rebuke, was just listening. Siddhartha felt what a happy fortune it is to confess to such a listener, to bury in his heart his own life, his own search, his own suffering. But in the end of Siddhartha's tale, when he spoke of the tree by the river, and of his deep fall of the holy Om, and how he had felt such a love for the river after his slumber, the ferryman listened with twice the attention, entirely and completely absorbed by it, with his eyes closed. But when Siddhartha fell silent, and after a long silence had occurred, then Vasudeva said, It is as I thought. The river has spoken to you. It is your friend as well. It speaks to you as well. That is good. That is very good. Stay with me, Siddhartha, my friend. I used to have a wife. Her bed was next to mine, but she has died a long time ago. For a long time, I have lived alone. Now you shall live with me. There is space and food for both. I thank you, said Siddhartha. I thank you and accept. And I also thank you for this, Vasudeva, for listening to me so well. These people are rare for who know how to listen. And I did not meet a single one who knew it as well as you did. I will also learn in this respect from you. You will learn it, spoke Vasudeva, but not from me. The river has taught me to listen. From it you will learn as well. It knows everything, the river. Everything can be learned from it. See, you've already learned from this water, too, that it is good to strive downwards, to sink, to seek depth. The rich and elegant Siddhartha is becoming an oarsman's servant. The learned Brahmin Siddhartha becomes a ferryman. This has also been told to you by the river. You'll learn that other thing from it as well, quoth Siddhartha after a long pause. What other thing, Vasudeva? Vasudeva rose. It is late, he said. Let's go to sleep. I can't tell you that other thing, oh friend. You'll learn it, or perhaps you already know it. See, I'm no learned man. I have no special skill in speaking. I also have no special skill in thinking. All I'm able to do is listen and to be godly. I have learned nothing else. And if I was able to say and teach it, I might be a wise man. But like this, I am only a ferryman, and it is my task to ferry people across the river. I have transported many thousands, and to all of them my river has been nothing but an obstacle on their travels. They travel to seek money in business and for weddings and on pilgrimages, and the river was obstructing their path, and the ferryman's job was to get them quickly across that obstacle. But for some among thousands, a few, 4 or 5, the river has stopped being an obstacle. They have heard its voice, they have listened to it, and the river has become sacred to them, as it has become sacred to me. Let's rest now, Siddhartha. Siddhartha stayed with the ferryman and learned to operate the boat, and when there was nothing to do at the ferry, he worked with Vasudeva in the rice field, gathered wood, plucked the fruit off the banana trees. He learned to build an oar, learned to mend the boat, and to weave baskets, and was joyful because of everything he learned, and the days and months passed quickly. But more than Vasudeva could teach him, he was taught by the river. Incessantly he learned from it. Most of all, he learned from it to listen, to pay close attention with a quiet heart, with a waiting, open soul, without passion, without a wish, without judgment, without an opinion. In a friendly manner, he lived side by side with Vasudeva, and occasionally they exchanged some words, few and at length thought about words. Vasudeva was no friend of words. Rarely Siddhartha succeeded in persuading him to speak. Did you, so he asked him at one time, did you too learn that secret from the river, that there is no time? Vasudeva's face was filled with a bright smile. Yes, Siddhartha, he spoke. It is this what you mean, isn't it? That the river is everywhere at once, at the source and at the mouth, at the waterfall, at the ferry, at the rapids, and the sea, and the mountains, everywhere at once, and that there is only the present time for it, not the shadow of the past, not the shadow of the future. This it is, said Siddhartha, and when I had learned it, I looked at my life, and it was also a river, and the boy Siddhartha was only separated from the man Siddhartha and from the old man Siddhartha by a shadow, not by something real. Also, Siddhartha's previous births were no past, and his death and his return to Brahma was no future. Nothing was, nothing will be. Everything is, everything has existence and is present. Siddhartha spoke with ecstasy. Deeply this enlightenment had delighted him. Oh, was not all suffering time, or not all forms of tormenting oneself and being afraid of time? Was not everything hard, everything hostile in the world gone and overcome as soon as one had overcome time, as soon as time would have been put out of existence by one's thoughts? In ecstatic delight he had spoken, but Vasudeva smiled at him brightly and nodded in confirmation. Silently he nodded, brushed his hand over Siddhartha's shoulder, turned back to his work. And once again, when the river had just increased its flow in the rainy season and made a powerful noise, then said Siddhartha, isn't it so, O friend? The river has many voices, very many voices. Hasn't it the voice of a king, and of a warrior, and of a bull, and of a bird in the night, and of a woman giving birth, and of a sighing man, and of 1,000 other voices more? So it is, Vasudeva noted. All the voices of all creatures are in its voice. And do you know, Siddhartha continued, what word it speaks when you succeed in hearing all of its 10,000 voices at once? Happily, Vasudeva's face was smiling. He bent over to Siddhartha and spoke the holy Om in his ear, and this had been the very thing which Siddhartha had also been hearing. And time after time, his smile became more similar to the ferryman's, became almost just as bright, almost just as thoroughly glowing with bliss, just as shining out of 1,000 small wrinkles, just as alike to a child's, just as alike to an old man's. Many travelers, seeing the two ferrymen, thought they were brothers. Often they sat in the evening together by the bank on the log, said nothing, and both listened to the water, which was no water to them, but the voice of life, the voice of what exists, of what is eternally taking shape. And it happened from time to time that both, when listening to the river, thought of the same things, of a conversation from the day before, of one of their travelers, the face and fate of whom had occupied their thoughts, of death, of their childhood, and that they both, in the same moment, when the river had been saying something good to them, looked at each other, both thinking precisely the same thing, both delighted about the same answer to the same question. There was something about this ferry and the two ferrymen which was transmitted to others, which many travelers felt. It happened occasionally that a traveler, after having looked at the face of one of the ferrymen, started to tell the story of his life, told about pains, confessed evil things, asked for comfort and advice. It happened occasionally that someone asked for permission to stay for a night with them to listen to the river. It also happened that curious people came who had been told that there were two wise men or sorcerers or holy men living by that ferry. The curious people asked many questions, but they got no answers, and they found neither sorcerers nor wise men. They only found two friendly little old men who seemed to be mute and to have become a bit strange and gaga. And the curious people laughed and were discussing how foolishly and gullible the common people were spreading about such empty rumors. The years passed by, and nobody counted them. Then at one time the monks came by on a pilgrimage, followers of Gautama, the Buddha, who were asking to be ferried across the river, and by them the ferrymen were told that they were the most hurried, walking back to their great teacher, for the news had spread the exalted one was deadly sick and would soon die on his last human death, in order to become one with the salvation. It was not long until a new flock of monks came along on their pilgrimage, and another one, and the monks, as well as most of the other travelers and people walking through the land, spoke of nothing else other than Gautama and his impending death. And as people are flocking from everywhere and from all sides, whether going to war or to the coronation of a king, and are gathering like ants in droves, thus they flocked, like being drawn on by a magic spell, to where the great Buddha was awaiting his death, where the huge event was to take place, and the great perfected one of an era to become one with the glory. Often Siddhartha thought in those days of a dying wise man, the great teacher whose voice had admonished nations and awoken hundreds of thousands, whose voice he had also once heard, whose holy face he had also once seen with respect. Kindly he thought of him, saw his path to perfection before his eyes, and remembered with a smile those words which he had once, as a young man, said to him, the exalted one. They had been, so it seemed to him, proud and precocious words. With a smile he remembered them. For a long time he knew there was nothing standing between Gautama and him any more, though he was still unable to accept his teachings. No, there was no teaching a truly searching person, someone who truly wanted to find, could accept. But he who had found, he could approve of any teachings, every path, every goal. There was nothing standing between him and all the other thousand any more who lived in that what is eternal, who breathed what is divine. On one of these days, when so many went on a pilgrimage to the dying Buddha, Kamala also went to him, who used to be the most beautiful of the courtesans. A long time ago, she had retired from her previous life, had given her garden to the monks of the Gautama as a gift, had taken her refuge in the teachings, was among the friends and benefactors of the pilgrims. Together with Siddhartha, the boy, her son, she had gone on her way due to the news of the near death of Gautama in simple clothes on foot. With her little son she was traveling by the river, but the boy had soon grown tired, desired to go back home, desired to rest, desired to eat, became disobedient, and started whining. Kamala often had to take her rest with him. He was accustomed to having his way with against her. She had to feed him, had to comfort him, had to scold him. He did not comprehend why he had to go on this exhausting and sad pilgrimage with his mother to an unknown place, to a stranger who was holy and about to die. So what if he died? How did this concern the boy? The pilgrims were getting close to Vasudeva's ferry when little Siddhartha once again forced his mother to rest. She, Kamala herself, had also become tired, and while the boy was chewing a banana, she crouched down on the ground, closed her eyes a bit, and rested. But suddenly she uttered a wailing scream. The boy looked at her in fear and saw her face had grown pale from horror, and under her dress a small black snake fled, by which Kamala had been bitten. Hurriedly, they now both ran along a path in order to reach people and got near to the ferry. There, Kamala collapsed and was not able to go any further. But the boy started crying miserably, only interrupting it to kiss and hug his mother, and she also joined his loud screams for help until the sound reached Vasudeva's ears, who stood at the ferry. Quickly, he came walking, took the woman on his arms, carried her into the boat. The boy ran along, and soon they all reached the hut, where Siddhartha stood by the stove and was just lighting the fire. He looked up and saw first the boy's face, which wondrously reminded him of something, like a warning to remember something he had forgotten. Then he saw Kamala, whom he instantly recognized, though she lay unconscious in the ferryman's arms. And now he knew that it was his own son, whose face had been such a warning reminder to him, and the heart stirred in his chest. Kamala's wound was washed, but it had already turned black, and her body was swollen, and she made to drink a healing potion. Her consciousness returned. She lay on Siddhartha's bed in the hut, and bent over her stood Siddhartha, who used to love her so much. It seemed like a dream to her. With a smile, she looked at her friend's face. Just slowly she realized her situation, remembered the bite, called timidly for the boy. "He's with you, don't worry," said Siddhartha. Kamala looked into his eyes. She spoke with a heavy tongue paralyzed by the poison. "You've become old, my dear," she said. "You've become gray, but you are like the young Samana, who at one time came without clothes, with dusty feet, to me into the garden. You are much more like him than you were like him at the time when you had left me in Kamaswami. In the eyes, you are like him, Siddhartha. Alas, I have also grown old. Old. Could you still remember me?" Siddhartha smiled. "Instantly I recognized you, Kamala, my dear." Kamala pointed to her boy and said, "Did you recognize him as well? He is your son." Her eyes became confused and fell shut. The boy wept. Siddhartha took him on his knees, let him weep, petted his hair, and at the sight of the child's face, a Brahmin prayer came to his mind, which he had learned from a long time ago when he had been a little boy himself. Slowly, with a singing voice, he started to speak from his past and childhood. The words came flowing to him, and with that sing-song the boy became calm, and was only now and then uttering a sob and fell asleep. Siddhartha placed him on Vasudeva's bed. Vasudeva stood by the stove and cooked rice. Siddhartha gave him a look, which returned with a smile. "She'll die," Siddhartha said quietly. Vasudeva nodded. Over his friendly face ran the light of the stove's fire. Once again Kamala returned to consciousness. Pain distorted her face. Siddhartha's eyes read the suffering on her mouth, on her pale cheeks. Quietly he read it, attentively waiting, his mind becoming one with her suffering. Kamala felt it. Her gaze sought his eyes. Looking at him, she said, "Now I see that your eyes have changed as well. They've become completely different. But what do I still recognize that you're Siddhartha? It's you and it's not you." Siddhartha said nothing. Quietly, his eyes looked into hers. "So you've achieved it?" she asked. "You've found peace?" He smiled and placed his hand in hers. "I'm seeing it," she said. "I'm seeing it. I too will find peace." "You have found it," Siddhartha spoke in a whisper. Kamala never stopped looking into his eyes. She thought about her pilgrimage to Gautama, which wanted to take in order to see the face of the perfected one, to breathe his peace. And she thought that she had now found him in his place, and that it was good, just as good, as if she had seen the other one. She wanted to tell this to him, but the tongue no longer obeyed her will. Without speaking, she looked at him and saw the life fading from her eyes. When the final pain filled her eyes and made them grow dim, when the final shiver ran through her limbs, his fingers closed her eyelids. For a long time, he sat and looked at her peaceful, dead face. For a long time, he observed her mouth, her old, tired mouth, with those lips which had become thin. He remembered that he used to, in the spring of his years, compare this mouth to a freshly cracked fig. For a long time he sat, red in the pale face, and the tired wrinkles filled himself with this sight, saw his own face lying in the same manner, just as white, just as quenched out, and saw at the same time his face and hers being young, with red lips and fiery eyes, with the feeling of this both being present and at the same time real, the feeling of eternity, completely filled every aspect of his being. Deeply he felt, more deeply than ever before, in this hour, the indestructibility of every life, the eternity of every moment. When he rose, Vasudeva had prepared rice for him, but Siddhartha did not eat. In this table where their goat stood, the two old men prepared beds of straw for themselves, and Vasudeva lay himself down to sleep. But Siddhartha went outside and sat this night before the hut, listening to the river, surrounded by the past, touched and encircled by all times of his life at the same time. But occasionally he rose, stepped to the door of the hut, and listened whether the boy was sleeping. Early in the morning, even before the sun could be seen, Vasudeva came out of the stable and walked over to his friend. You haven't slept? He said. No, Vasudeva. I sat here. I was listening to the river. A lot it has told me. Deeply it has filled me with a healing thought, with a thought of oneness. You've experienced suffering, Siddhartha, but I see no sadness has entered your heart. No, my dear, how should I be sad, who have been rich and happy, have become even richer and happier now. My son has been given to me. Your son will be welcome to me as well. But now, Siddhartha, let's get to work. There is much to be done. Kamala has died on the same bed on which my wife has died a long time ago. Let us build Kamala's funeral pile on the same hill on which I had to then build my wife's funeral pile. While the boy was still asleep, they built the funeral pile.